How do you forgive someone who looked you in the eye while helping destroy everything you built? That question echoed in Ethan Cole's mind like a siren as he stood in the courtroom, staring across the room at the woman he once promised forever. A few months ago, he would have sworn he knew her every smile, every secret. Now she was a stranger wrapped in expensive silk and quiet lies. Betrayal doesn't always come with a gun or a scream. Sometimes it arrives dressed like love, whispering in the voice of someone you trust. And when the truth finally crashes through that illusion, it doesn't just hurt, it redefines who you are. Ethan's world wasn't just shaken, it was stolen, forged, and signed away behind his back. But he didn't collapse. He fought. And what happened next changed everything. Not just his career, not just his marriage, but the very foundation of who he believed he was. Stay with this story because in the next few moments, you'll witness a shocking twist that not even Ethan could have seen coming. One that will test the limits of trust, justice, and the power of redemption. Ethan Cole stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of his luxury apartment in Chicago's West Loop, watching the city flicker to life beneath him. From up here, the world looked neat, like success came in straight lines and structured deals. But inside Ethan's chest, everything felt scrambled. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Very off. At just 35, Ethan had clawed his way from a middle-class background to become the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech empire. Discipline, instinct, and an iron will had built his empire and kept him alive in a world that devoured the naive. And yet this new contract from Logan Pierce, the smooth-talking investor with a reputation for creative negotiations, had him second-guessing every instinct he had. The numbers were clean, the growth projections were gold. But something about the pitch felt too slick, like someone selling a dream so perfect it had to be fake. "Don't overthink it," Sabrina had said the night before, swirling red wine in a crystal glass, her eyes sharp behind the warmth of her smile. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. But Ethan wasn't sure who the we was anymore. 7 years ago, Sabrina had been different. Back when they lived in a 2-bedroom walk-up and split rent with Ethan's best friend, she'd lit up the room with laughter and purpose. But ever since his company had taken off, something had shifted. Their conversations now revolved around investments, real estate luxury getaways, and not love or values or even dreams. She used to chase sunsets. Now she chased status. That morning, Ethan had left for work with her voice echoing in his mind. "You either sign it today or we let the future pass us by." Now in the quiet of his corner office, that future felt more like a loaded gun. He sat at his desk and opened the contract again. He had read it 5 times already, but this time he scrutinized the details with a sharper eye. That's when he saw a signature on page 14. His name. But it wasn't his handwriting. He froze. The pen pressure, the angle, the flare of the E, it was too perfect, too smooth. Not his. Not natural. Goosebumps crawled up his arms. He checked the timestamp beside the signature. Dated 2 days ago. He hadn't even held a pen that day. He was on a flight to San Francisco. His chest tightened. Someone had forged his signature. His phone buzzed. It was Sabrina. "You're running out of time. Logan says we need confirmation today. Don't screw this up." Ethan stared at the message. There was no warmth, no "I love you," just pressure, just a deadline. And then, like fate knew the perfect moment to mess with his world, a soft knock came at the office door. He expected an assistant, maybe legal, not a 15-year-old girl holding a stack of folders close to her chest. "Mr. Cole," she said, nervous but composed. I think you should see these." He blinked. "You're Chloe, right, Helen's daughter?" She nodded. "My mom cleans your office. Last week she found these in the back of a locked drawer. She didn't know what to do, but I thought I should say something." Ethan took the papers. The top page was a scanned version of the contract he was reviewing, only this version was marked Draft V2, Modified. The changes were highlighted in red. There were hidden clauses, payment structures rerouted through dummy corporations, a complete transfer of control buried in the legal jargon. Whoever had forged his name wasn't just lying, they were staging a coup. His hands trembled. He looked up at Chloe, stunned. "How did you even—" She shrugged. "I help my mom sometimes. I saw the name Logan Pierce and remembered he was the guy you met here last week." He gave me a weird vibe, so I Googled him. Ethan couldn't help but smirk despite the tension. And what did Google tell you that he sued people? Lied in court? Had offshore accounts? He's bad news, she wasn't wrong. And the signature, Ethan asked. My mom compared it to the one on your employee form. She said it looked fake. Then I saw the date. Ethan stood. Chloe, you have no idea what you just walked into. Her eyes didn't flinch. Neither do you. That night, Ethan returned home late. Sabrina was waiting for him, the lights dimmed, jazz humming from the speakers, the scent of roasted garlic floating in the air. It was supposed to be romantic, but Ethan felt like he was walking into a trap. Dinner, she asked, holding up a wine glass. I'm not hungry, he muttered, brushing past her. You didn't sign it, did you? Her voice snapped, tighter than before. He turned. How do you know there's even a deal left to sign? A beat of silence. Then her smile returned, too quick, too controlled. You're being paranoid, Ethan. No, he said. I'm being careful. She walked toward him slowly as if rehearsed. You used to trust me. He looked her in the eye. I used to know you. The moment crackled with tension. She stood inches from him now, whispering, Don't ruin this for us. Ethan stepped back. I think it's already ruined. After she left the room, Ethan returned to his office and logged into the building's security system. Footage from 3 nights ago showed Sabrina entering his private study. She opened the drawer where the contract had been. She had a key. That wasn't pressure. That was betrayal. The next morning, Ethan canceled all meetings and locked himself in the office. He reread the contract, the forged version, the original, and Chloe's documents. He called his legal team but said nothing yet. He needed time to think, not just legally, but emotionally. This wasn't just business anymore. It was personal. Every word, every signature, every whisper felt like a test of his values, his integrity, his love if there was any left. And then it hit him. If Chloe hadn't spoken up, he might have signed, might have handed over everything he'd built, might have lost it all to the 2 people he trusted most. He picked up his phone, not to call Sabrina, not to confront Logan. He called Helen. Can I speak to Chloe? He asked. There was a pause. She's right here, Helen said softly. When Chloe's voice came on the line, Ethan said, You just saved my life. She didn't know how to respond. So he added, And I don't forget the people who do that. The line went quiet, but something inside Ethan had shifted. The illusion of control was gone, but in its place, clarity. If you were Ethan and you found out your own spouse might have forged your signature, would you confront them immediately or play along to learn the full truth first? If this story moved you, please tap the heart and show your support. Your love helps keep stories like this alive. The next few days passed like Ethan was walking through fog, thick, disorienting, and laced with the bitter scent of betrayal. He didn't confront Sabrina right away. He couldn't. Not yet. He needed proof, not just suspicion. And more importantly, he needed time to unravel everything without showing his hand. But every time he looked at her setting down coffee with that practiced smile, texting someone in the middle of the night, adjusting her silk robe as she walked past him, he wondered, was she always this good at pretending? Or had he just refused to see the cracks? At the office, he called in Helen Bennett under the guise of discussing legal compliance. But when she stepped inside his office and saw the documents Chloe had uncovered, now spread out like a crime scene on his desk, her expression changed instantly. I thought there was something wrong, Helen said quietly. Chloe didn't want me to tell you, but she found the contract before I did. She's sharper than she lets on. She may have saved everything, Ethan muttered. But we're only halfway there. Helen leaned over the desk. You think your wife is involved? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Together, they began examining the structure of the deal bank trails. Shell corporations, signature inconsistencies, and call logs. And the deeper they went, the more disturbing it became. The contract was more than fraudulent. It was engineered to divert Ethan's assets into a series of offshore holdings linked back to Logan Pierce. A setup. And Sabrina had been pushing for it from day one. Ethan leaned back, his fingers digging into the leather armrest. I gave her everything, he said under his breath. Everything. Helen looked at him carefully, and now she might be the one trying to take it all. That night, Ethan returned home late, walking through the door like a man tiptoeing through a minefield. The penthouse was dim quiet except for the soft hum of jazz on the speaker. Sabrina stood by the window, a glass of white wine in hand, watching the city lights flicker across the lake. "You're home late," she said without turning. "I had meetings. You've had a lot of those lately." Ethan said nothing. He walked past her and headed toward the bedroom, but she called out before he reached the hallway. "I saw you looking at the security feeds." His spine stiffened. He turned slowly. So she finally looked at him. Her eyes were wide, but not with innocence, with calculation. "Is there something you're not telling me, Ethan?" He stepped closer. "Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing." There it was, the pause. That 1-second flicker of fear behind her eyes before the mask snapped back into place. But Ethan was done playing chess. "I know you've been meeting with Logan," he said, voice flat. "I saw you. Riverside Bistro. 2 days ago." Sabrina's face drained of color. "You followed me?" "No. You left a trail a child could follow." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the wineglass. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" he snapped, stepping forward. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you helped forge a contract that would hand over my company, destroy my credibility, and drain our accounts, all while telling me to trust you. So what exactly am I misunderstanding?" Sabrina looked away, her voice brittle. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." There was a long silence. Then finally she spoke. "He said he'd ruin us." "Who, Logan?" She turned to face him fully now, her expression strained as if the weight of the lie had finally crushed the ability to maintain it. "He said he'd expose things from my past, dig into my family, ruin my name, our life, your company, everything. I didn't know what to do, so I stalled. I kept pushing you toward the deal because I didn't see another way." Ethan stared at her, trying to read between the lines of every word. "You could have told me." "No," she said softly. "I couldn't. You'd never trust me again." And now he asked coldly, "Do you think this earns it back?" Tears welled in her eyes, but Ethan didn't move. That night he slept in the guest room. The next morning, as Ethan headed to his car in the underground garage, something caught his eye. His brake line had been tampered with. A single cut, barely noticeable, but just enough to fail at high speed. He froze. This wasn't a business negotiation anymore. This was war. He immediately contacted Helen and had security footage pulled. No face was visible, just a figure in a hoodie moving fast, precise, experienced. But it was enough. "This goes beyond corporate sabotage," Helen said over the phone. "Someone's trying to scare you, or worse." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we give them something to be scared of." That afternoon, Sabrina showed up at his office unannounced. Security let her in. He hadn't yet blocked her access. She stood across from his desk, pale and shaking. "I have something," she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out a USB drive. "What is it, Logan?" "He recorded every meeting, every threat, every instruction he gave me. I copied it without him knowing." Ethan took the drive slowly, unsure whether to believe her or suspect another trap. "Why now?" "Because I'm done being afraid," she said. "And because I owe you at least the truth." Ethan stared at her for a long moment. "You're right. You do." As she left, he inserted the drive into his computer. Audio files appeared, dozens of them. He clicked one at random. Logan's voice crackled through the speaker. "Get him to sign it, Sabrina, or you'll both lose everything." "I'm not bluffing." Ethan closed his eyes, jaw tightening. The evidence was real, and now so was his resolve. He looked out at the city beyond his window, but this time the lights felt different, not like something he wanted to protect, but something he was ready to fight for. Everything was in motion. The betrayal was no longer a whisper in the dark. It was an open wound, and someone was going to pay for cutting it. And you, if someone you love betrayed you but claimed they were being blackmailed, could you ever trust them again? Or is that kind of trust gone forever? The days that followed moved like a storm, unpredictable, violent, and impossible to ignore. Ethan Cole sat at his desk, the USB drive from Sabrina, spinning slowly between his fingers. In front of him were printouts of every audio file, transcripts and financial records Helen had helped pull together. The evidence was staggering. Logan Pierce wasn't just a manipulative investor. He was orchestrating a web of fraud, using Ethan's company as a front for laundering dirty money. And Sabrina, She had played a part. Whether willingly or not, she had handed him the key to the trap that nearly destroyed everything. But now Ethan had the power to take it all back. The decision to go public wasn't easy. He'd spent years building a reputation of precision, success, and integrity. Coming forward meant risking scandal, humiliation, and the possibility that the media would spin it all as CEO negligence. But Ethan knew one thing clearly: he couldn't live with himself if he stayed silent. With Helen's guidance, he handed over everything to the authorities. Within days, federal agents were launching an official investigation. Logan was arrested quietly while exiting his high-rise downtown. Sabrina, already listed in the files as a complicit party, was subpoenaed the same evening. The courtroom battle that followed felt surreal. The Cook County courthouse buzzed with reporters and whispers. Ethan, dressed in a simple navy suit, sat beside Helen at the plaintiff's table, eyes calm but unreadable. Across the room, Logan Pierce smirked like a man who still thought he could win. And then there was Sabrina, silent, composed, her eyes hollow. The trial was brutal. Helen presented audio recordings, forged signatures, hidden accounts, and fake subsidiaries tied to offshore banks. Every time Logan's voice echoed from the speakers, the courtroom stiffened. Ethan watched as the carefully constructed illusion of his former life shattered piece by piece. He expected anger, rage, vindication. But what surprised him most was the sorrow. He wasn't just watching Logan fall. He was watching the version of himself who once believed in blind trust, who once built a life with someone he thought he knew, disintegrate on the stand. Then came a moment no one expected. On the final day of the trial, Sabrina stood and asked the judge to let her speak. There was hesitation, but permission was granted. She stepped forward, eyes glistening. "I don't ask for forgiveness," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "But I want to say something to two people I never even looked at properly until this happened, Chloe and Helen Bennett." The courtroom went still. "You uncovered what I was too afraid to face. You stood up for the truth when I was hiding behind fear. And for that, I am truly sorry." Her voice cracked at the end. She didn't cry, but everyone could feel the weight of her regret. Ethan didn't look at her. He couldn't. The jury reached its verdict that same afternoon. Guilty on all charges: Logan Pierce, Sabrina Cole, and Nicholas Drake, the shadowy criminal behind the scenes. 10 years in federal prison. When the gavel fell, Ethan didn't cheer. He just closed his eyes and exhaled, as if finally releasing the breath he had been holding for months. But the real healing didn't begin in that courtroom. It began quietly, weeks later in the office Ethan once thought he'd lose. The company was scarred but salvageable. Clients returned. Employees, once whispering about rumors, began looking to Ethan again with trust. He reorganized leadership, appointed Helen as chief legal counsel, and most importantly, he created something new. The Cole Integrity Initiative, a program that funded legal scholarships and ethics training for underprivileged youth. And he didn't just create it, he invited Chloe Bennett, now 16, and already looking at law schools, to be its founding youth ambassador. At the official launch event, Ethan stood before a packed auditorium. He wasn't the same man who once chased nothing but numbers and success. His voice was steadier now, rooted in experience, humility, and something deeper. "I lost everything that didn't matter," he told the crowd, "so I could finally protect what did." The audience stood in applause. As he stepped down from the stage, Chloe approached him and slipped a handwritten note into his hand. It read, "Thank you for believing in someone who just wanted to do the right thing." That night, back in his apartment, no longer the hollow shell it once was, Ethan stood at the same window looking down at the city that had nearly broken him. But this time it didn't feel so distant. On his desk was a photo of the old life. Him and Sabrina smiling in front of a beach house they no longer owned. He picked it up for a moment, then gently placed it in a drawer, not out of anger, but closure. Then he called Helen. "I never said this properly," he told her, "but you didn't just help me win a case. You helped me save myself." There was a pause on the line. "You did that," she said. "I just reminded you that you could." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Ethan smiled, not the practiced kind, but a real one. He was still standing, not because he never fell, but because he chose to rise. And now he was ready to build something better, brick by honest brick. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Would you have gone public risking your reputation, or tried to quietly fix things behind the scenes? Do you believe people like Sabrina deserve a second chance if their betrayal came from fear instead of malice? What did you think of Ethan's journey? Did this story move you or make you reflect on anything in your own life? Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If you felt connected to Ethan's journey, comment number 3 below. If you thought it was just okay, comment number 2. And if it didn't resonate with you, feel free to leave number 1. We value your honesty. Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to send a heart and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. See you next time for another emotional and unforgettable story.